Hi my loves, welcome back to a new video. So if you guys couldn't guess, in today's video I will be doing a book rec video, especially for books that I think are perfect to read the fall autumn season. I will be doing another video where I show you guys my autumn TBR, but in today's video I'm going to go over books that I have read that I personally think would be perfect to read for fall and autumn if you have not read these books. So I have a lot of books to get through. We have a bunch of series, a bunch of standalones. We've got three main categories of genres. We have mystery thriller, we have romance, and then I also have my fantasy recs. And these are all the books that I've read that I think are just perfect for fall and autumn. So we're gonna get straight to it, and we're gonna go straight on. I think we're gonna start with fantasy because that's the first stack that I can see. So first up for fantasy, we have the Ex-Hex series. So this is by Erin Starlin. We have the Ex-Hex, and then we also have the Kiss Curse. I have yet to read the Kiss Curse, but I decided to put them together because this is the first book in the series. But I read the Ex-Hex last year. Basically puts her hex on her ex, and it basically returns to town, basically like needing help to like discover it and like find out what has happened. And this one's kind of like, I wouldn't say it's like spice, it's like 3 out of the 5 in terms of spiciness, but I would highly recommend it for like the very witchy vibes. It feels very like autumny. It's very cozy, easy to read, very, I don't know, it's like bingeable but like not super fast to read, so it's like a very nice calming experience. And obviously we have the second book that I have yet to read, but I think that would be perfect for the autumn season. So that is the first series I have, and then the second series I have is the Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Gardner. So there's 3 books in the series. We have Once Upon a Broken Heart, A Ballad of Never After, and then A Curse for True Love. These are the paperback books that I have. This one basically follows Evangeline, and basically she always believed in fairy tales and true love and stuff like that, and when her boyfriend basically gets engaged to her stepsister, she decides to go to this like church to try and find the Prince of Hearts in order to stop him, to get him to stop the wedding. And enter Jax. He basically puts on this curse, basically saying that she owes him 3 kisses and he has to do what I want, and then basically it just doesn't end up well, and Evangeline's just like finds him so infuriating, is trying to find him because he ended up putting a wrong curse on, and she's just like, oh, this person. And this book is just so magical. These are for my girlies who love a good fairy tale. I love the Disney princesses. This is perfect. It is just such a beautiful fantasy world. You have Jax, the morally grey character, who anytime he's with Evangeline, even though he shouldn't want to be near her, and they're just so cute. I just love like the back and forth, and I just love the fairy tale feel of these books. So these are the paperbacks I have. I highly recommend these. I think my favourite one would be The Ballad of Never After. That's the best one in my eyes, but all of them are a really good like little series when you want to get yourself into like a fantasy mood, especially if you're like going into fantasy fresh up. I would recommend these because they're very easy to understand, the plot's very simple, and as it's got that fairy tale aspect, it's easy to follow on and easy to get ingrained in, and it feels very immersive. So highly recommend that. And then next up we have The Crimson Moth by Kristen Cicerelli. There's actually the second book, The Rebel Witch, which I haven't gotten yet, but that is also going to be on my my autumn TBR. This book basically follows Rune. Basically she is actually a witch. Basically this is the time where it's kind of like the Salem witch trials, where they're trying to find the witches, try and kill them all, and Rune is this witch who basically like turns into like a moth, and she's basically secret. She's the one that basically helps witches basically escape and stuff like that. And we have Gideon, who is like the chief of like these soldiers who are trying to basically stop the witches. And this one basically, she basically tries to get him to fall in love with her, basically to find a secret to rescue one of the most like powerful witches that's like on the agenda to be rescued. And Gideon also at the same time is trying to use Rune to find out if she possibly may be a witch. And this book is just so fun in terms of like the witchy vibes and the like, I don't know, they're back and forth where these people, they both got a hidden agenda, and obviously the other doesn't know that this person obviously has a secret agenda, and they're both being very sneaky. It's very much enemies to lovers, and it's just so like easy to read, and I just love like the witchy gothic kind of vibe that it puts out. And then next up we have Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. There's actually 2 books. There's this one, and then there's Enchantra, which I read this year. This book is so perfect for autumn. Like, I can't stress this enough. This is a dark gothic fantasy. Basically, Ophelia and her sister Genevieve's mum had died, and basically Ophelia's sister Genevieve decides to enter these games of Phantasma, which basically comes around like every 100 years or something like that. I can't remember roughly the timeline. And basically Ophelia decides to go there to rescue her sister, and she basically ends up getting herself caught into the games of Phantasma. And Phantasma is just so fun. Like, I love each and every game that happens in it. She basically forms an alliance with Blackwell, who basically agrees to do a bargain with her, basically saying that he can like help her with her sister and stuff like that. And it's got like twists and turns, it's got like a bit of mystery in it. Obviously it's got the dark element, it's dark romance meets fantasy meets mystery thriller. So if you like all of those aspects, I think you highly recommend this. It does have a lot more smut than a typical fantasy book, so I would say it's like 4 out of 5 in terms of the spice level, but they're just so fun. I just love the different trials and the different challenges in the games, and I highly recommend this one, and then also Enchantra, which is the second book. And then next up we have The Serpent and the Wings of the Night by Clarissa Broadbent. So I've only read the first book in the series, so this is actually 3 sets of duologies, and this is the first book in the first set. So we have this one basically follows the princess of a vampire king. So she's actually human, but her dad is a vampire, like she's the adopted daughter of a vampire, and every year they do these games of vampires, basically seeing who can win them. And obviously she's the first human to enter the trials. And this book, vampire aspect of this book, chef's kiss. Like, I actually haven't ever read a vampire like book before, especially coming from a girl that loves the Vampire Diaries. Like, I love any type of vampire TV show, movie, anything, that I'm there, but I've never read anything in terms of a book, and this book was so freaking good. The betrayal, I will say, is like, and like the things that come out, it's like so twisty. There's always some type of like mystery element happening in the fantasy world, especially in this one, and I just love this book so much. This one basically features Araya and Rayan. So Araya is the human adopted daughter of the vampire, and then Rayan is a vampire that is basically taking part in the challenges, and they kind of form an alliance, also attraction towards each other. I wouldn't say they're enemies to lovers, but all I'm going to say is they become enemies to lovers, and that's all I'm going to say on that. But I just love the vampire world, the games again. This is a bit like Phantasma where there's like games going on, but this one is just like very twisty, it's very fun, it's very immersive, and even though the size of it is quite thick, reading it is really, really fun, very, very bingeable, and I definitely highly recommend like immersive reading where you like listen to either like a playlist and then read the book at the same time, or reading the book and listening to an audiobook. I wish I did that, but I highly recommend this series. I've only read the first book. I'm planning to read the next one, obviously in autumn, but I highly recommend this is the first book in the duology. And then last but not least, we have Heavenly Bodies by Imani Eru. This book, you guys already couldn't tell. Can you guys already tell? So this one features Alara. So basically there is a prophecy that when 2 people fall in love, a star will fall, and basically she has this prophecy that she's going to fall in love with a god, and that love is going to cause mass destruction, and basically she ends up getting kidnapped by the enemy territory, and basically the king basically forces her and the prince Enzo to basically work together to defeat this and basically break this prophecy from actually happening. And this book is like a world of like god and goddesses that basically like lead each realm from like above, and then they're different territories who have like different powers, and basically she's got like a variety of powers the same as Enzo, and they basically have to work together to stop this prophecy from happening. And this book was everything and more. I can't wait to read the second book in this series. This is actually the Fairy Loot edition of the book, which in itself is just so freaking gorgeous, and I just love the enemies to lovers yearning. Like literally she brought back yearning, and I'm so freaking excited to read the next book. I've never read anything by this author, and she's just become traditionally published from being an indie author, and I highly recommend reading this book if you want a perfectly enemies to lovers yearning, goddesses, that kind of stuff, astrology, you've got a bit of that in there. Highly recommend, and it's like got that mystical kind of element to it, so I highly recommend reading this if you haven't. And now that is it for all of my fantasy recs at the moment. Now we're gonna go on to romance recs. So my first one is a ultimately cozy book, and that is no other than The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by no other than Laura Gilmore. And you're thinking, that's a real person? Yes. This book is so cozy. I would say that this is not the best book, but if you want a book that's going to get you into the autumn vibes, this is it right here. It's literally in the name, Pumpkin Spice Cafe. Like, look at this book. This is autumn in a book. I think this book was just so bingeable, so cozy. It's got a little bit of a mystery element into it. And basically our main character, Jeannie, has gotten this shop from her aunt. And basically she moves from the city to this small town. She meets Logan. Logan is the local farmer in the town. He's just really disturbed by Jeannie's appearance. But obviously this mystery of like a ghost in her shop basically gets them to not work together, but like spend more time together because she needs help. And you know, he finds himself falling in love with her. This book, I don't know, it reminds me of Gilmore Girls. That's what I was saying when I was reading it. Logan, he reminds me so much of Luke from the Gilmore Girls. So if you like that and you love autumn and you want the autumn feels and you need a book that's going to get you romanticizing autumn, I highly recommend this one. It's just oh so cozy. It's just got such a simple plot to it as well. Highly recommend that if you haven't read it. And then next up we have two books by Ashley Poston. I think these are the ones that I feel like I personally think are really good for autumn. So first up we have The 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This one basically features our main character Clementine, and when her aunt passes away she basically gets the ownership of her aunt's flat, and basically one day she returns back to this strange man in her aunt's apartment, and basically she discovers this guy is 7 years into the past, meaning for some reason she's ended up 7 years into the past. She doesn't know why. It happens randomly, like when she'll leave she'll come back and he'll be there, and she finds herself spending time with him. And this book I think is really super sweet and just really perfect. I would say like this is perfect for like the transition from summer to autumn, like if you're trying to get the kind of a summery vibe but you're missing like autumn as well and you want to get into the autumn vibe, I highly recommend this. Is really great for transitioning. And then obviously we have A Love or Love Story. This one basically features Aline. Basically her best friend, her and her best friend supposed to be going on a trip, but her best friend couldn't because she had got some trip with her boyfriend. So Aline decides to still go to this cabin. She feels a little bit stumped about life. Job's not feeling right. She doesn't feel like she's stuck, like she doesn't know what she's doing, and she just feels stuck at the moment. And basically she enters this town not thinking much of it because her car had broken down, to the next morning of her walking around and thinking, these characters look very... to her thinking, these people look very familiar. These shops, I feel like I've seen them before. To have a realization that all the people in this town are all characters from her favourite story series. So this is a book series by an author that died. Obviously, whilst being in this town, she meets Anders, and he is a guy that she does not remember being in the story. And basically she's like, have I found myself in the last book of the story that the author never wrote? And let's just say this book is really weird, it's really cozy, and it's really fun. And all I would say as someone that loves to read books is that this character loves reading so much, and I feel like as a reader it's just beautiful to read that. And with pretty much anyone, like, you're always gonna have your comfort books, your comfort series, and to like resonate with that character in this book in the same way that I love books and like how she loves it just feels so beautiful. And the way Ashley speaks about that and puts that into words is like she's kind of like taking thoughts out of my head and putting it directly onto paper, and I just love that. I just love the whole vibes of it. I just feel like this is like perfect for autumn. I don't know why. I think this could be like, again, a bit like 7 Year Slip, a perfect transition for moving from summer to autumn, but I highly recommend reading it in autumn. I just love the magical realism and just that little storytell world. I don't think I've ever seen anyone write any books that are like this, so I highly recommend these 2 books. And then next up we have a book by Tia Williams, which is a love song for Ricky Wilde. I recently read this book, and basically this one is basically 2 people. They don't know why, well, she doesn't know why she's attracted to him, he kind of knows why. And this one, again, a bit like Ashley Poston's magical realism, this one has a bit of magical realism, is it? And I think I read this in summer, but I think it would be perfect for autumn. I'm not going to go over and over and over again about this book. I highly recommend watching my other videos if you want to learn a little bit more about this, but it's basically black romance. It features Ezra and Ricky, and yeah, it's just such a beautiful story about life and time and meeting your person but might not be the right time, or there's just something that's always happening. And I just love the way Tia bring these characters to life. I will say the first half is better than the second half, but I think, again, if you want something that's really cozy, just really relaxing to read, I highly recommend this one. This one's perfect for getting cozy with a candle, with a tea, and if you just like a little bit of black romance as well, I highly recommend this. Following on from my black romance, we have the Skyline Sister series. So I only have the first 2 books in terms of physical form, but I have read all 3. So first up we have Before I Let Go, then we have This Could Be Us, and then we have Can't Get Enough. For autumn specifically, I highly recommend Before I Let Go. Summer is more this one, and I think Can't Get Enough, I could say both, but I think just the whole series in general, if you want a cozy, beautiful series about romance and friendship and womanhood and all types of things, I highly recommend this. Kennedy has the best writing out there. I just love the way she writes and how she puts such a big emotions and big life experiences onto paper. The way she deals with stuff like grief, to deal with cheating and infidelity, to dementia and Alzheimer's and autism, all the different things that we experience in life, or we have people in our lives that have. The way she puts that onto paper and highlights those experiences in such a knowledgeable way, like she knows so much about these stuff, or even if she doesn't know a lot about it, she's generally researching and putting a lot of detail into it, so you actually feel like she knows so much whilst reading this, and that they're an accurate representation of real experiences that people have, and real obviously disabilities that people might have, real challenges and so on. So I highly recommend any of her books, but especially the Skyline Sister series if you want like a cozy autumny little series to get your teeth into. I highly recommend the Skyline Sister series. And then last but not least, we have Are you guys surprised this book was brought up? If you have heard of this book, this is no other than If You Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. Let's just say this book ripped my heart out and stomped on it, and basically that was it. This does have a second book. I do have a second book on my shelf, but I am not planning to read it because the second book is basically the same thing but in his POV, and it's just like, do I want to put myself through that trauma again? I don't think so, but I want you to go through it so you know how I felt. This book was just so beautiful but so heart-wrenching and so heart-crunching. I don't even want to ruin this book, so I'm not even going to talk much about it. All I've got to say is that you have to read it for yourself. So I highly recommend it. This is what the cover looks like. I don't know why. In my head, I thought it was going to be like Twilight vibes. Let's just say it isn't. It isn't. Even Twilight isn't as sad as this. And that's all I'm going to say on that front. But I highly recommend it if you want something that you're going to get yourself crying, sobbing. And I highly recommend it if you haven't read it. So that was the last book that I had in terms of romance. On top of my head, I did have 2 dark romance series. I think one was the Maddest Men series. It's like 3 books. I'll put that there. That's my dark romance. And then I have another series that I just finished. I think it's the Of Man series by Alexis something. The photos will be here, and these are both 3 book series, and I just think these will be perfect for autumn in terms of dark romance. This one on this side is like mystery thriller kind of dark romance. There's like a mystery element of like serial killer. It reminds me a bit of like The Naturals, but as smart, add wide tubed. And then this one is just like a mafia dark romance. Again, I think mafia dark romances are perfect for autumn. So we have these on the screen, but that is pretty much my last little recs for a romance. Now we're gonna go on to, I would say, my favorite genre to read in autumn, and that is no other than mystery thriller. So as you guys know, if you've been watching my channel for a while, I have been really delving into mystery thriller, especially last year. I love like Criminal Minds, I love CSI, I love that type of like documentary of serial killers and all that different jazz. And this year especially, I've got so many books on my mystery thriller radar, but we're going to go over some of my favorite mystery thrillers I think are really perfect to get your teeth into. So first up we have And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. If you want that classical, I don't know, olden kind of vibes mystery thriller, I highly recommend this. It basically features a bunch of people that get invited to an island by obviously their host, and obviously they all don't know each other, but they all have a connection to the host. But when they get there, the hosts are nowhere to be seen, and basically they all arrive, and the next morning someone is dead. And I think you can understand what follows through. Each day, a new person dies until there were none. And this book is basically a book that's going to take you questioning your whole entire existence, pretty much. I thought that I knew who the killer was until something happened. And I was like, actually, it's that person, then they get killed. And then this person, they get killed. And you're like, what is actually going on? And this book I just think is just so fun to read. It has like a bit of like nursery rhymes, which is like fun, to like a little bit of a riddle that also kind of follows through to what the ending might be. But it's always questioning you, getting you to question, and I just think it's really cozy, really fun. Obviously it's not that long, and I think it's perfect for getting yourself into the autumn feels. I think Agatha Christie is one of those authors that a lot of people talk about when they talk about mystery thriller. I haven't read any of the other books by her, but I have a few on my list to read in autumn, but I highly recommend this one. And then next up we have one of my favourite series ever by an author that I love so much, and that is no other than Freida McFadden. I've only read a handful of her books, but the ones that I'm going to recommend, first up we have the Housemaid series. There's actually 3 books in the series, but I only have the first 2. I'll have the third one on the screen somewhere. So this one basically follows Millie. She's just been released from prison and she gets a job as a housemaid, and basically it follows her story. I'm going to start with this one. This one's actually going to be made into a movie, which I'm really excited about. And basically in this house there's a couple, and basically the wife acts really rude, she's very weird, and like stuff starts happening, and like Millie's obviously trying to hide the secret, the fact that she's been to prison, but then weird things are happening. She meets also Enzo, who's a gardener, and this book with Freida, you think something's gonna go one way and it goes a total other way. And I love this series so much. There's obviously 3 books. There's this one, there's this one that's The Housemaid's Secret, and then the last one, which is The Housemaid is Watching. And I just think these are just perfect for autumn. Any book for Freida is always perfect for autumn, but the Housemaid series, if you want a series to get yourself into and like binging, I highly recommend this. It obviously follows a character that you really will like. And then also another book from her is Never Lie. I read this year actually in summer, but I wish I already read it in autumn. This book was so freaking spooky. Basically about a couple who basically go to a house viewing, but they get stuck there during a storm, and it basically belongs to this therapist who basically held a lot of her meetings there, and obviously this person like vanished, and this couple obviously is like stuck there. Weird things start happening, and our female main character, she's obviously found this little layer and is listening to all these tapes of obviously her patients of the woman that went missing. And this book, again, you think it's gonna go one way, it gets 360. Let's just say going into her books, don't just question everything, question everyone. Don't think one person is like a certain way just because she makes you seem that way. And this book was just so twisty, so fun, and I would highly recommend. I would say like literally this book was even better than the Housemaid series. I actually wish that they made multiple of these, but I think it's like perfect little standalone as well. It's so spooky, so fun, so bingeable, so fast paced, and it's just perfect if you want to get yourself into like the autumnal spooky mood without obviously scaring yourself a bit too much, because I know some books can just scare you so much, which actually leads us on to our next book, which is no other than We Used to Live Here by Marcus Killower. This book, if you know, I read this last year. This one I would say is a mixture between mystery thriller and horror. It's leaning more into the horror genre, but it's perfect for that transition from obviously mystery thriller into horror. This book is so freaking creepy. It's basically about a queer couple who basically buy a house, and one day we have a family knock on the door, and the man's like, "I'm sorry to disturb you, but I used to live here as a child. Can we please come in so I can show my family where I used to live?" And obviously she's like, I'm not really sure, but she invites him in anyway. And that was her first mistake. That's all I'm gonna say. That was her first mistake. This book, even talking about it right now, like thinking about it, it gives me chills. Like, I actually want to reread this year, because this book, probably one of the creepiest books I've ever read, if I say so. Like, literally felt like a movie whilst reading this book. Like, every little detail made me feel so spooked out, but then the mystery element as well to it. So, highly recommend that. And then last but not least, we have one of my favourite series ever, and that is no other than the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is a 4-book series. This is the only YA mystery thriller on my list, but this series, chef's kiss. If you like if you like Criminal Minds, this is for you. This is literally a YA Criminal Minds. This book features Cassie, and basically Cassie has the special ability of being able to read people like a profile, and she basically gets invited by the FBI to work in a very small little unit of other teenagers with other special talents. And basically Cassie's mother went missing, or she was murdered, and basically we have that storyline, but then we also have a bunch of teenagers fighting crime, basically trying to find the killer in cold cases, but there's an actual active case that actually Cassie might be involved in that she doesn't know of just yet. And this series, I think you just have to read it to find out, but this series is just so freaking fun, bingeable. I actually wish I read them all like in one time. Like, knowing now what I know, I would have easily read this all in once. I did like the fact that I separated it out a bit. I just made it all so good, but it's just so freaking fun, so freaking bingeable. It's so twisty. Again, it keeps you on the edge of your seat, and these characters, I just love them so much. If you're obviously a bit younger and you want a good like mystery thriller that's not gonna spook you out a bit too much, I highly recommend this. I would say this is definitely more young adult. Like, I would say I recommend it for like 16 and above. Like, if you're 16 to 19, that's like a good age range to read. But like, I'm 23, I read this when I was about 22, absolutely loved it. I will be reading this when I'm 27, 28, 29, 30. I don't care, because this literally is Criminal Minds but a YA version. So I highly recommend this series if you haven't read it. But that is going to be it of my autumn book recs. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I think I had about 15 to 17 book recs for you guys, so plenty. We have about 7 to 8 for each genre, depending on like what genre you do like. So I feel like there is something for everyone. Obviously, I don't really have much general fiction or like dark academia or stuff like that. I do want to get a little bit into that, which obviously you guys will see in my autumn TBR. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna stop yapping now. I hope you guys have gotten some recs from this. If you read any of these books, let me know as usual in the comments what you thought about them. If you have any recs for me as well, let me know, because I'm always finding new books to add to my TBR, even though my TBR for autumn is already extensive. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. Make sure you give this video a like, a comment and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and also follow my other socials down below, especially my TikTok and Instagram. I have a Bookstagram now, guys, so if you guys want to see any book content, I'll have loads on there. Also my TikTok, I love posting little short form on there, and then also my personal Instagram if you guys just want to chit chat and stuff like that. I love you guys all so much. Stay blessed, and as I always say, I love you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, my loves.